Welcome back to the wood shop. And one of the most versatile tools in your arsenal, definitely in mine, is the router. Now, depending on which bit you put in that router, it can perform lots of different jobs, whether that be dovetails, dados, rounding over, you name it, and it's pretty much endless. Now, this is typically the type you'd see in just about any wood shop. Bearing on top, straight sides, very common. You can get these very cheap or very expensive, depending on which kind you want to go with. But today I'm going to show you one that quite possibly may be the last flush trim bit you ever need to buy. I present to you the Beast. Now, it doesn't take a magnifying glass to see the difference between these two things. Naturally, this one is for a 1/2 inch collet. That one's 1/4 inch. Basically about the biggest one I had besides this one. You can definitely see this is going to be probably much more aggressive, be able to take smoother cuts because of all these bits. Now, naturally, the biggest advantage of this is going to be these bits. And if you're not familiar with this type, they make this particular type of setup on your joiner and your planer. You get the helical head, and so it comes with all these little bits here. And if you look really close, you can see this is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of stuff. So essentially, if you get dull on one side, you can take that bit and flip it around. You've got a sharp edge again. Now, these type bits, these go dull. You either do just a few options. You either take and get you a diamond hone, get in here and try to sharpen that thing, throw it away, get you a new one, or maybe even invest in one that's a little bit more expensive, hold an edge a lot longer. That's kind of up to you. Now, one other thing you'll notice too, which they do make this in this type, but you'll see a bearing at the top and the bottom of this one. As I said, they do make it in this style too. The top bearing one is the one I've got. Not a lot of difference, except you can set this to be your bottom piece and make a pattern off of that, or the top. So you've got different options there. This one, you've only got that for the top. So your pattern piece has to be at the top. And because of the difference in the size, naturally the size of this is bigger. So the bearing has to be bigger naturally. And you can see how much bigger it is compared to that one. Quite a difference. And this is why I said this is quite possibly the last flush trim bit you ever have to use or buy. The bearings can be replaced if they ever go bad. Bits can be turned, and eventually, if they need to, you can also buy those bits as a replacement. Now, I could sit up here and talk about this all day, but it really ain't going to make a difference if I don't show you how it performs. So let's do that. Now, the way I'm going to do that, I've actually got a couple different router tables. I've got one set up in my table saw, and kind of behind me, you can see I've got one set up too. That particular one, I have set up with a 1/2 inch collet, so that's what this one's going in. This one's got a 3/8, so I'm going to have them set up together. That way it's just easier. But no difference in the power, really. Both of them are plenty powerful enough, so there shouldn't be any kind of variations there. Let's set these things up and see how they work. And as usual, I'll leave a link to this beast of a flush trim bit in the description below. Now today, for my template, we'll call it, I'm going to be using these radius jigs, just cheap jigs I found online. But normally the way I would do these with the standard type flush trim bit, that's quite a bit of material to cut off of there, especially on one of those type bits. They don't cut the best in my opinion. So what I would normally do is either take a sander or go to the bandsaw, something like that, kind of ease this corner close to that, and then I would come back and trim it up that way. This is hopefully going to save an extra step. But let's get down here and show you what I'm talking about. And of course, with anything, you want to know your direction of your wood. So you definitely don't want to be letting this thing go into it. You want to be pushing against it. It will definitely pull that out of your hands. And they do make little bits you can raise up here to have a starting bit that just kind of keeps it in place. But I'm going to show you how this works just like it is. And you can see how that worked. Seen a little bit of smoke coming off that bit. Now, that bit's fairly new, but it is a cheap one. But it done the job, for the most part. It is good and smooth. Not really any burning, anything like that. It did leave some little bit of a frays on the edge. You can take and sand those off. But all in all, it done what it's supposed to. And that's kind of the basics. Now over at the other router table here with the big bit we're talking about, I've got the same radius we're going to use. Now this is a much larger bit, so either you want to have a router that's got a variable speed where you can turn that down, or I do have a adjuster mounted underneath of this because I had a router in here before that required that. It's just hanging there now. I'm not using it for this particular one. The one I've got does have variable speed, and I've got it turned all the way down. Let's get this one started up and see how that works. And there you have it. Now, I actually tried to run that through once in the wrong direction, caused me some splintering, that kind of stuff. No issues there. But you can see how that done the radius of this one. Now, I did have to go with a larger piece just because of the height of that bit. I couldn't get it low enough to cut the smaller piece, but it cut through it no problem. And you can see the differences in the thickness. And you can tell the radiuses are the same. This seems to be a lot smoother cut. Now, initially, on the other side, I did have it leave a little bit of a groove there. Nothing too crazy. I'm still not sure about what's causing that. Maybe one of the bits is not in alignment. I'll check that later on. But even still, cutting something with this larger thickness is going to be great, because I've ran into many times, like I said before, having to do that the old way, cutting with a bandsaw, getting it close, and then doing it over there. And this is going to save me a lot of time, a lot of trouble. And one thing I did, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. Anytime you want to make a round over on your piece of wood, pay attention to the grain. And I've said that before. However, you want to, especially if you're using something like this, you want to try to cut into your end grain and not into your long grain. That splinters out. And so if you need to cut this side, actually just put it on this side, and then you're cutting back into your end grain again. Much safer cut, and it don't give you little splinters. Now this is going to be a bit of a shorter video. Just wanted to bring this thing, show it to you. Maybe it's something you're interested in. As you can see, the results we got out of that, it's going to be great. Something you may want to add to your workshop. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to leave the link to this in the description. And as always, like, share, subscribe if you would. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next video.